So last week we questioned what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were going to do with all that money that they're making now that they're sort of back in business. So, Agnes, today the Treasury's come out and said, hey, we're actually not going to use this as a slush fund. We are actually going to shut these guys down, even though they are making lots of profits.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially what they did is they addressed that issue. If you're making profits, what Treasury is going to do, instead of like charging a 10% dividend, they're just going to sweep the profits. Every quarter, if Fannie and Freddie are profitable, the taxpayer gets those profits, which seems fair enough, right? Given
but the basic idea, the question, the worry you and Dan Indiviglio wrote last week was, hey, now that these guys are starting to make all this money, is Congress, everybody going to start to relax about winding down this weird construct
and that
where
issue,
the government owns
even with the changes, that issue is still there, right? Because the thing is, this money doesn't go to paying back the amount of money that was actually invested, the principal amount that the taxpayer invested, about $190 billion, right? So that's still going to be there.
But I will say, with what the Treasury seems to be doing, they're also increasing the speed at which Fannie and Freddie are supposed to shrink their balance sheet.
Exactly.
So they are, and then they're sweeping away all their profits, so they don't have any money themselves. They're sort of speeding up the shrinkage of Fannie and Freddie, which is obviously a step towards getting rid of them. The thing is, we have no replacement, and that's a job for Congress. Right?
Yeah, and that's exactly the point. I mean, I think Treasury's basically done what it can do with Fannie and Freddie, and it's also, it already gave Congress like proposals more than a year ago on, proposals for how housing finance should look in the United States, and we've had nothing.
Well, you're not going to get anything until after the election. I mean, I suppose it is something worth asking what Romney and Obama will do about it, because there's something they're going to have to address over the next 4 years, isn't it?
Well, and I think it's also, frankly, it just hasn't been a priority. It's been 4 years now, right, since Fannie and Freddie have been taken over, and we have a very vague outline of what people are thinking about doing.
But what we do have now is at least a response in part to your story, which is what we're going to do with all the money that Fannie and Freddie make as the sort of housing recovery kind of slowly returns and profits start coming.
Yeah, they are no longer allowed. They cannot rebuild their capital. I mean, that's essentially, I mean, to the point I think that we had talked about, like they're just in a tighter straitjacket. I mean, there's no way that they're going to kind of be able to grow and then become what they once were.
So what happens to the money then? If it's not going to rebuilding Fannie and Freddie, where does it go? It goes to
the
Congress?
General Fund. No, it goes to the Treasury. So that, I mean, this is actually one of the concerns. Like if, if everything is exactly, if housing rebounds and Fannie and Freddie become very strong, then that's another issue. It becomes a revenue stream that is very difficult, at a time of deficits to give up.
So it's still a slight disincentive for Congress to wind this thing down.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll be back next week with more Breaking Views.